Welcome to Benchmark Studios podcast, where we share stories that matter to the community and inspire the next generation. My name is Katie. I'm a volunteer here at Benchmark, and today we're joined by someone who has dedicated her life to protecting and uplifting children's health, Dr. Pia Fenimore. I'm also joined by two Benchmark students, Jada and Jalissa, who will be part of our discussion today. Thank you guys all for your time and for being here. I'm so excited for this. Dr. Fenimore, Pia, you've had such a powerful journey from McCaskey High School to leading pediatrics at Penn Medicine Lancaster General Health. What were some of the moments along the way that shaped your decision to dedicate your life to children's health, and share a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. So I think there's been a lot of moments. I've been a very fortunate person, but I think it certainly started at McCaskey. I loved my time at McCaskey, but of course it was, like every other high school time, hard sometimes, emotional sometimes, all of those kind of things. But I'm very grateful to McCaskey for exposing me to so many different kinds of people, a lot of pretty rigorous academics, which I'm grateful for, teachers that were incredibly inspirational. So it really, I would say, started there, and that is out of all the schooling that I've done, and doctors, we have a lot of schooling. I would say that McCaskey's the one that has taught me the most skills that I use every day. How to talk to anyone, how to walk in other people's shoes, how to be flexible, how to listen. So I definitely think it started at McCaskey. Couple other things that happened. I was a Latin American Studies and Spanish major in college. Had no intention of going to med school whatsoever. And I started to get along that career path, and I really started to question where I was headed. I did some job interviews and things like that, and I started to realize that the career path that I was on really wasn't connecting. And I think you're at a moment there where you're kind of like, well, this is what my degree's in, so I better just do it. And I was fortunate enough to have a bunch of doctors in my life. My grandfather was a doctor. My dad is a doctor. And I watched what they were doing, and I watched how meaningful their careers were and how much of a difference they made every day. And I realized that I was not on that kind of track and that I really wanted to be. So I made a total 180 turnaround and started taking the classes I needed to go to medical school. So that was a really kind of pivotal moment for me as well.
That's awesome. So it sounded like McCaskey was very impactful. Was there a teacher or mentor or personal experience that in Lancaster that left a lasting impression on you growing up?
Yes. I'm going to tell you about two of them because I think they both reveal important messages. One is we'll start with the positive one. I had an English teacher who really taught me the power of words and taught me how to harness that power. I would hand in my assignment and she would always say, "Give me more. I need more. Why did you write that? Why do you feel that way? Why is that there?" And she was just never satisfied, and she really got me comfortable putting my feelings on paper, putting my feelings into words, and then got me to understand the power of that. And I'm very appreciative for that because, I love to write. I love to talk.
Perfect.
And she really taught me to do those things in a positive way. The not so positive story is I had a science teacher who, when I went to them for help, because I've always struggled with math, and this was a science class that had a lot of math, and when I went to them for help, they told me that I was not a science person and that I should just kind of get my way through this class and then not take any more science classes. And at age 15, when someone tells you that, someone in an authority position, you believe it, and I did. It was only until my college forced me to take a science class that I realized, I actually am a science person and I love science and I can do this. Yeah, okay, math's a little harder for me than average people, but I like this. And so I get really, really angry now when I hear about people labeling kids or labeling anyone and saying, oh, you're just not good at that, because I just don't believe that that's true of anyone.
Wow, that's very powerful. Yeah, that's really good. And it's so true that those labels can be so impactful. So speaking of that, what kind of labels have you guys heard, like from teachers or friends, of like, have you been labeled a math person or a science person or something like that?
Wasn't labeled like a math person or a science person. I would say I was labeled more of artiste person. But like the bad stuff that they labeled me was like troubled kid and bad kid, and that's pretty much everything that I was labeled.
And how did that make you feel when you would hear things like that?
It kind of hurt my feelings because I wasn't really a bad kid. I just needed the right people to actually talk to.
Exactly.
Like, I needed to be comfortable enough to tell you why I was doing the stuff that I was doing. But also, it was more like, it started to make me believe that I was a bad kid because of the stuff that I was doing. And then it just wanted to make me act out even more.
Right. So you started to believe those messages that you were hearing, and then they affected your behavior, and it just became this cycle.
Yeah.
What about you? Have you ever heard any labels? Anyone else called a label or someone labeled you?
I've been labeled as a writer before.
Okay.
Because I really enjoy writing. Like, you could put a paper in front of me, any type of prompt, and I can go and I can write anything that you want me to write. And I'll continue to write and write and write until I can't write no more.
That's great. And do you like that label, or do you kind of, how do you feel about it?
I like that label because it shows that, like, people see what I'm thinking. Like, when I put it on paper, I say what I feel, and that they understand what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking.
That makes sense.
Love that.
When you communicate, do you prefer to like write to people, like text versus talking in person or like on phone calls? Does that affect it at all?
I prefer to talk to people in person because I can see their reactions and their body language rather than a text, because a text can be misinterpreted in so many different ways. Like, it might come off as passive aggressive when the whole time you were trying to be kind, or you didn't mean to come off that way.
Absolutely. So obviously this week, it's been a heavy week, and there's been a lot of sad news, and we're going to talk a little bit about the topic of gun violence. So recently, Pia, you have helped lead efforts to reduce gun violence through safe firearm storage. What brought the issue of gun violence in our communities to your attention, and how did you get involved in prevention efforts?
So as pediatricians, we spend a lot of time talking to parents and to kids about staying healthy and basically, how to stay alive and how to thrive. And I spend a lot of time talking about vaccines and diabetes and obesity and infectious diseases, cancer, things like that. And in 2023, the American Academy of Pediatrics, which is an organization that all pediatricians always pay attention to, pushed out the information that the number one killer of kids in the United States are firearms. And that really made me stop, because here I am, I'm spending so much time talking about these other things, but the number one killer is not cancer or obesity or diabetes. They're all important, but what are we doing for the number one killer? And the answer for myself, and I think most pediatricians, is we really weren't doing that much. So that made me start to talk to people who are doing things. And it also made me dig into the literature a little bit, and specifically the Lancaster County literature, because while I'm certainly all in for saving the world, I really want to help my own community first. And hopefully that will have echo effect and help the world. But and so the literature in Lancaster County is really remarkable. Firearms are the number one cause of suicide in Lancaster County. and that is by far a statistic. And so we started to think about, well, how can we prevent that? And so we looked into kind of some details about that, and it turns out that most of kids who use a firearm to complete suicide get it from a relative. And so we started to think about, well, what if that gun had been locked up? What if they hadn't been able to get that? Because we know that most suicidal thoughts are very fleeting. If you can kind of sit in them and move through them, they go away and you can survive them. But if you have a lethal means like a firearm, it makes your survival chances much, much less likely. So we started thinking about, well, what if everybody was storing their guns appropriately? And what if people who shouldn't be able to access them couldn't? And so we've really been doing some projects around that to try to make a difference. It also has turned out to be a huge bridge builder, because I think that when you just start talking about gun control, firearm owners don't want to even be near you. And we can talk all day about that. But when I started talking about firearm safety, the same way that I talk about put your baby in a car seat, wear a bike helmet, wear a seatbelt, they're all the same to me. They all protect people. They're all things we can do to protect people. When we started talking about like that, firearm owners were willing to come to the table, and they were really willing to kind of say, okay, I understand that I have something that really could harm people in my possession. I want to be able to own that, and I appreciate that you're not talking to me about taking away that right. And so we really moved through a lot of the obstacles between the two sides by kind of leaving the politics out of it and really focusing on public safety.
That's awesome. I love that. So you changed the discussion from, you can't have this, we want to take something away from you, which makes people feel defensive, to why don't we just change the way we store them and try to have better resources and understanding of the risks, just like we do with understanding the risks of disease and other things like that, and the risk of being in a car accident, and approaching it the same way. So Jada and Jalissa, we talked about gun violence before and different things related to McCaskey. So Jada recently graduated from McCaskey. Jalissa is currently a student there. And you all had shared with me previously that in 2023, McCaskey was in lockdown 3 times. And it feels normalized in a way. And you all know that the reason it was in lockdown was someone was outside with a gun. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience is like to, go through those, because neither you nor I have that experience. So what is it like to go through that? What are the emotions that you feel and your classmates feel when when your school goes into lockdown?
I feel like at points it can be very nerve-wracking and very anxiety-inducing, especially when you hear the bell, like the announcer, and it starts to pick up a little bit. I mean, not pick up. It starts to they start to make an announcement. That bell that goes off, I don't know why, but it makes my heart drop. It makes me think that automatically something bad happened. They're about to announce something. Okay, lockdown. Okay, we can't go outside. Okay, stay in the class, whatever. But it's very scary, especially when you don't know what's really happening and they'll just say lockdown, you can't go outside, or you have to stay in your classroom. And for the other students especially, because they don't know what's happening. We all don't know what's happening, and as a collective, we're all scared. Not scared, but we're all worried about what could be happening or what might be happening.
Yeah. What about you? Have you experienced lockdown and that kind of thing?
I would say, yeah, the very first ever lockdown that we had, my heart dropped. They never use the speakers, ever. They don't do morning announcements. They don't do any of that. We actually have, people that go and do, little news, and we watch it in the classroom on this, TV.
Mm-hmm.
So once that bell does ring,
You know it's bad.
You know something bad is happening either inside the building or outside the building, and it's like, okay, what is it? Is it inside or is it outside? Is it going to come inside or is it just going to stay outside?
You don't know like how much in danger you are at that moment.
Yeah, you don't know really how much detail. Then you have like some kids that take it as a joke and they're like cracking jokes about it. And then like you have other kids that are like, oh my gosh, like in the back of their head they're like, what if I don't go home tonight? So it's like, I would say like it's a 50-50 chance on some kids being completely cool with it, and then other kids like, oh my God, I might not go home. Like it's a very scary moment when they use the bell and the announcements comes on and everything. So,
and then after those times, you did find out that, you know, somebody was outside with a gun. Once you don't hear it in that moment, but you know later. Do you have any idea where, the people obtain the guns? Do you think they're getting them, like Pia said, a lot of kids who get access to guns, it's from a relative. So do you have any idea where those people have gotten guns, or where just anyone in the school gets a gun, how they access them?
Well, there is some people that put together like, which I'm pretty sure, or maybe I could be wrong, is not really considered like a gun because they put them together.
Okay.
But there's old people that be giving guns out, like that will stand in a corner and you could go in a corner and buy it from an old person, or you could just have like that one person that, oh, I know that person has a gun, I'm gonna go steal it and I'm gonna give it to you and I'm gonna flip it and you give me like 500 and I'll give it to you. So it's like, it's a lot of robbery with it. And then you have old people that buy the guns for the kids. It's just like, I don't know, they should honestly like figure out the older people backgrounds and see what they're really doing with the guns, because you shouldn't be coming in and grabbing more than one gun.
Right.
Yep.
Right. What about you? Where do you think they get the guns? Like, what's the appeal? Do you think they're trying to flip them and make money, or is it cool?
A lot of times it could be an accessory. It could be something to protect themselves with, or it could be, hey, I have this, like you said, for to sell. And like Jada said as well, robberies, because there are some cases where kids will go and seclude this kid, and they know that this kid has a weapon, and they will take that weapon from them, and they'll do whatever they want with that. But I also think there's a lot of like, it's not secure how many people like have access to guns, and it's like, it's so crazy, like, because there's no reason that this kid can get a gun that he knows where to get a gun.
Mm-hmm.
No kid should know where to get a gun.
Right.
And there's a lot of that happening here, especially now, because most of these kids get their guns from people who know people.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be like, okay, I'll give you the money, you go get it for me, and then I'll bring it back, like Jada said. Like, I'll give you money for it, and you can have it.
Yeah.
One of the things I've come to respect a little bit more, because when I went into this, I didn't quite understand it, was just because I've had a lot of conversations with gun owners lately. A lot of people own guns because they don't feel safe and they want to protect themselves. And that would not be my personal choice. If I didn't feel safe, I wouldn't go to purchasing a firearm. But for a lot of people, that is the answer. And I think, we live in a country where if you're over 21, that's a legal thing to do, to go buy a gun to protect yourself. And I've been really trying to have conversations with them, number one, about why they don't feel safe, but number two, about when their gun isn't on them and with them, where is it? And what are they doing? Because if they want to feel safe, they need to make sure that it doesn't get stolen. Mm-hmm. So that's been interesting because I've seen some light bulbs go off about that. But there's a gap to bridge for sure.
Do you think that some of them also want guns because it makes them feel safe?
Yeah, most definitely. There's a lot of people that would rather pick up a gun because, for one, all you really have to do is just, clock it back and pull the trigger. Instead of picking up like a knife or razor blade and like slicing them, it's just, you could shoot them one time and get away. But a lot of people are scared with everything that's going on with the gangs and everybody jumping everybody. A lot of people are scared, so a lot of people is picking up guns and they're not using them the right way. Like,
yeah, that's the intent is not good.
Yeah,
like they're wanting them because they're more effective and quicker and easier, and it's just like almost like it's an easy weapon kind of for them to use. Pia, after the Parkland shooting, I know you've done a lot of different writing that I've read. After the Parkland shooting, you wrote that you wouldn't be true to your profession if you stayed silent, and you called on the medical community to treat school shootings like an epidemic. How has this perspective influenced your work, and what progress or frustrations have you seen since 2018?
It's mostly frustration. I mean, Parkland was 2018, yes. And where are we, 2025? And look how many there are so many school shootings since then. But I think the one thing that has happened is the call to action for medical providers has been heard. And it's not just pediatricians, it's trauma surgeons, it's family medicine doctors, it's emergency medicine doctors, all the people who see particularly kids affected by gun violence have really united and are trying to do things. And you can see them advocating in so many different ways. You can see them, marching on Capitol Hill. You can see them writing policy. There's a pediatrician running for office in South Carolina right now against Lindsey Graham, who has not done much for gun violence prevention. So she's really running on that platform. And then, locally, there's people doing a lot of things around trying to prevent gang violence and trying to give kids a better answer to when they don't feel safe. So I see a lot of action. I just haven't seen the results quite yet. And I think that's because we just haven't gotten enough people on board.
Yeah, that's always the struggle.
Yeah.
To get the message out there and convince enough people to see a problem. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people just have trouble seeing a problem or seeing other people's perspectives or being in someone else's shoes. What are some practical steps that parents or really anyone that's a gun owner can take right now to reduce risks at home and elsewhere? You talked about how you kind of came to promoting safe firearm storage and you kind of brought those people together from the two sides. What are some practical steps that you give them?
So the first thing I do is tell them to sign up for a class, and we run these free classes. They're taught by law enforcement, or we also have some like shooting range owners that come and teach these classes. Anyway, they're taught by people that know firearms and are comfortable with firearms. And so they spend a lot of time talking about all the different ways to store your firearm safely. The most safe way is to store your firearm locked with the ammunition locked in a different place. But firearm owners will tell you that they don't like that much because it means that their firearm is not ready if they need it. So a compromise solution to that is what's called a biometric safe, which is a safe that holds your handgun, but you put your thumbprint in it to open it. So that means that only you can open that. And so if they sign up for a class, they get one of those for free.
Wow.
So that's really one of the things we've been pushing. And next month, we'll have our 8th class. So those have been really well attended. And I think that type of thing is kind of the way to go, educating people, but educating them in a place and a topic that they feel safe. Also, part of that class is a lot about mental health and suicide prevention and things like that. So we try to teach firearm owners that, especially if you have someone in your life that might be struggling with depression or things like that, consider actually storing your firearm somewhere else while that person is moving through that. And so we talk to them a lot about mental health as well. So that's really, for me, the number one thing that a firearm owner can do is just take that step to take a class.
Where do you go to sign up for that kind of class?
So you can sign up on the Mental Health America website or on the Penn Medicine Firearm Safety landing page.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to switch into children's mental health as a topic. So you've called mental health screening for kids as young as 8 a potential game changer. You've written about different methods and like questionnaires that are used. How do you explain its importance to parents or caregivers who might be hesitant about mental health care, or say things like, my child's too young to need that,
Yeah. So we use these screeners. They're little surveys that parents can fill out. If the child's under the age of 12, if the child's over 12, they fill out their own screener. And they just ask some questions that have been shown and have evidence to support that they can help us identify kids that might be struggling with some mental health problems. The thing is that kids of all ages, but especially younger kids, they don't wear signs on their chests that say, "Hey, I'm struggling." They don't even usually want to talk about it. I mean, one of the reasons why I love pediatrics is because kids and teens they just want to have fun. They just want to power through their day. They don't want to be sick. They don't want to not feel good. So it's a really cool thing about it. But when it comes to mental health, it makes it a little harder. So these screeners, they just give kids another way to say, "Hey, I'm hurting," and opens the door and lets them know that I, as their doctor, I'm willing to talk about it. I want to talk about it. I'm comfortable talking about it. There are treatments. There are things we can do. All of these things that maybe they don't know, or they think, well, why does she care? There's nothing she can do, which is not true. I do care, and there's a lot I can do. So these screeners open those doors. And I always tell parents, there's no side effects, doesn't hurt anybody, just do it. You might find something out about your kid that you probably should have known or want to know.
Exactly. Absolutely. It doesn't have any downsides to just filling it out, right? Yeah. It makes you think. It could never be a bad thing to make you think about, how you're feeling or to see how the kid is feeling. We had a conversation, Jalissa, Jada, and I, about some myths or misconceptions about children's mental health. And some of the things that we came up with was misunderstanding anxiety and how there's certain things that people can do or certain things people can't do and others need to understand and they just don't get it. We also talked about how there's a just do it kids mentality, which is kind of what you just had shared, where they just want to power through. Also, not understanding depression because it's very sporadic. It's, you had said that it goes up and down and it's, you don't know how you're going to feel one day. We also talked about how mental illnesses are not taught very well in school and they should be. And also how it's so difficult to focus when you're emotionally unregulated. What are some myths or misconceptions that you hear most often from families about children's mental health?
So one of the most frustrating things is when I hear adults say that their kid is just overreacting. And that is really hard for me because we need to take mental health very seriously. And I think if you are blowing it off, you're not only are you passing judgment on someone's feelings that you have really, frankly, no right to do, you're withholding potential treatment that could even be life-saving. So I get pretty angry when parents are like, they're faking it, or they just want attention. Yeah, they do want attention. Let's just say yes, and they deserve it. So I try to diffuse that myth pretty quickly. Other myths are that there's nothing you can do about it, and that's really not true. The cool thing about our brains is that they are, even when we're older, they're very moldable. You can really change those neuron pathways. They get stuck sometimes in places that they shouldn't be, or they start reacting to chemical levels in the brain that are off. But all of that is changeable. And whether it be through therapy or medication or even just changing little things like getting more sleep, you can change those neuronal pathways and really feel better. So I first try to kind of say, hey, there's a lot we can do here. Let's do it. Let's get you feeling good.
Right. And you can't do anything until someone actually tells you or lets you, treat them and share what's going on. And then you can start to look at solutions. But you have to get to that point first of being okay with saying, well, I'm feeling kind of this, or I'm feeling like I'm not getting enough sleep, and I'm feeling sad, or I'm feeling anxious. When I want to jump way back to when you were at McCaskey High. I'm going to ask you what were some of the biggest challenges that kids faced then, and then I want to hear from you both what are some of the biggest challenges that kids face now, and kind of compare and contrast. So go ahead. What were some of the biggest challenges kids faced?
So I graduated from McCaskey in 1988, just to give everybody a little perspective. And I would say that the top problems, the number one problem was teenage pregnancy. So the teen pregnancy rate in the United States reached its ultimate highest point ever in 1990. So if you think, I graduated in 88, so my whole time in high school, we were on the way up. And that was during a time where students who got pregnant at McCaskey, they usually dropped out. There weren't any kind of supports for them. They missed so much class during, before and after they had the baby that they often couldn't catch up. And if they did want to come back, they didn't have childcare. So there were a lot of people that were really working towards solutions. And my senior year was the year that they put the daycare at McCaskey. And people protested that. People said that would encourage teenagers to have babies, which I say that out loud now, and it just sounds so ridiculous. But that was going on, and now the teen pregnancy rate is actually at an all-time low through efforts to increase access to birth control, teach abstinence, and provide support and care to keep teenagers in school so that they don't have that second baby when they do get pregnant the first time. It's really drastically improved since the 80s. So I sort of look at that as a success story, but I'd love to hear what you guys who are in the moment think about that topic.
Yeah.
So right now I feel like the hardest part is either popularity or trying to fit in and try to act like everyone else is, or trying to act normal, but normal is just staying quiet or just not speaking your mind all the time. While considered not normal is speaking over the top, or doing things that normal people wouldn't normally do, like speaking out against certain things or like speaking their opinions.
Yeah, being opinionated or being animated, that's
That's what I was
frowned
trying to
upon.
say.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the biggest challenges that you think, even just outside of school, just in your age group, that kids face?
I would say like some challenges are like that some kids my age group face are, what is it, identity fraud.
Identity fraud? Okay.
Yeah. They don't really know who they are or who they really want to be. So like they kind of like just gather everybody else's personality and tries to make it into their own. Being two-faced.
Two-faced?
Yeah. Telling Jalissa one thing and talking about me, but also coming to me and talking about Jalissa and telling me another thing. That's like, it's really big. It's really big. So, but I agree with what Jalissa was saying about it all, because a lot of that be happening.
Yeah, and those things that you both mentioned are very connected. We're very worried about what other people think, and you change who you are depending on who you're with. So you don't come across very authentic, and it can really strain relationships when you appear to be so different, and you're hard for someone to understand because you just change and like you appear two-faced, like you mentioned.
I feel like another one, a really, really, really big one, is judgment.
Yeah.
Do you feel like kids judge each other, or do you feel like it's just judgment all over?
Absolutely. Everywhere you look, there's judgment. Even when people think they're not doing it, they do it a whole lot. And I feel like that's the biggest problem because it's so normalized, especially in like TV and movies and stuff. It just looks it looks appealing, and that's what we're taught. So
Yep.
people don't look at it as wrong. They just look at it as, oh, I'm just being me. But they're being judgmental about, oh, say someone's making fun of the way someone else walks. That's being judgmental, but they don't realize that.
That's judging. And then like either you're verbally not saying it, but your face is saying it, or maybe your face ain't saying it and you're verbally saying it and you think that it's a joke and you think that it's okay. Some people get like really, really insecure with somebody judging them about weight, about how they look, about acne. Like there's no point. There's no point in judging anybody because not everybody's perfect. And everybody has their own story to tell.
Absolutely. One of the things that Upia had written about in some of your articles was stressing the importance of stable family dinners and routines. And you note that family dinners, regular exercise, healthy eating have a huge impact on mental health. And very few American families do share regular meals, but research shows that there's fewer depressive symptoms and better grades when that is happening. What advice would you have for, especially those facing instability, to incorporate these simple but protective habits, especially when it's very difficult because some kids just don't have those stable routines and environments?
So first of all, I think it's important to define family dinner because I don't really mean that these have to be your relatives. Family dinner can be sharing a meal with some friends who you know always have your back. Family dinner can be having coffee with a teacher that you really like. It's really about sitting down, turning all the other noise out, and being with people who you know don't judge you, as we've been talking about, and who really care about what you want to talk about and who really have your best interests at heart. When it comes to busy families or families that don't have resources and things like that, I also would just say it's it's also about just kind of being in the moment. So it doesn't mean that there has to be some meal involved or that everybody has to be sitting around like some kind of fake TV show. It can happen in the car. It can happen while you're walking to school with your 8-year-old. I mean, there are so many places that this kind of thing can happen. And what you're really looking for are connections, are ways that somebody is listening to somebody, somebody's receiving it and going back and forth. And also that you're really hearing things. So parents always say, well, I asked them how their day was, and they say good, and then the conversation's over. And so we really spend a lot of time trying to teach adults how to talk to kids, how to get answers, how to ask them what they want to talk about. And one really common game is to play rose and thorn. So what was the rose of your day and what was the thorn of your day? Or what was the good thing and what was the bad thing? And sometimes it's also good to just realize that your child just wants to sit with you and not talk. So it's really, I think we use the words family dinner, but it's really more a connection.
Absolutely. That connection is something we crave so much. On TikTok, there's thousands of videos of teens diagnosing themselves with anxiety or ADHD. They use terms like gaslighting and trauma dumping. Do you think this is something positive because we're normalizing these conversations, or do you think that it's harmful because it's oversimplifying these serious, struggles?
Well, I think, first of all, I'll say I like TikTok. I think it's a great resource. It's a really good place where mental health concerns have lost their stigma. So I love that. Like, people are talking very openly about anxiety and depression. And I think that's great. I think everything we see on TikTok has to be taken with some questioning. And so certainly when kids come to me and they say, well, I saw on TikTok that I can treat my depression with raspberries, I'm like, well, no. So, that's obviously a silly example, but I really appreciate it when people check with me, and I think everyone should check with their healthcare provider, or at least a trusted adult before they take something that they learned on TikTok seriously when it comes to their health. I hate the term trauma dumping because I think you're being very judgmental on other people's problems, other people's emotions when you use that term. And so I don't really like that term. Gaslighting is a real term. It means when somebody tries to squash your voice, or when someone tries to make you feel like you can't speak your authentic self. So I certainly respect the term gaslighting, but I think it's really overused right now. So I appreciate TikTok for just bringing to light all of these things and for taking away the stigma. But I think that if we're going to have real conversations about things like mental health, they need to occur in private with people who know the science and understand what it means.
Absolutely. Have you guys seen some crazy things on TikTok?
Sure.
Tell me something crazy you've seen on TikTok.
I would say like the little probiotic ads,
vitamin ads and things like that.
Yep.
Supplements.
There is no reason why you should be showing your undies on an ad with, I believe it looked like cottage cheese on it.
Oh my.
But like, you should not be showing that on the ad and saying that dick gets rid of that, because I'm just not going to believe you. Like, do you see your underwears? Like, I'm not going to believe you. Also with like, oh, this takes away smells, and this does this, and this does that. Just stop promoting stuff, honestly. Stop promoting it. Because somebody can honestly order it, and then they not get the actual thing, or that gives them BV, or that gives them a yeast infection. Like, and BV is a very common thing. You could get it from anything. So it's like, just stop promoting stuff that is chemicals in it.
That could be not correct for what they might need. It's not the right thing for what they need. What about you? Something crazy or funny you've seen on TikTok?
I was thinking, and I see, like, you know what ashwagandha is?
Ashwagandha?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that was really, really big for a while. And I was like, I'm not going to lie, that seems like quite a placebo, because there's no way that it can keep you calm or it could keep you from having outbursts when it's basically just a vitamin.
You gotta go to the doctors for that.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, if you want something that's truly going to help you and help you try to get better, it's going to be from the doctors, not mostly anywhere on the internet.
True. That's probably true.
I
Most
agree.
of the better advice will come from your doctor than from the internet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The internet's just going to tell you you're going to die in 2 days.
Or try to take your money.
Exactly. A lot of times it is just trying to take your money.
They get away with it too.
So you mentioned earlier that in the 80s at McCaskey, teen pregnancy was such a prominent topic and issue. There was very high rates. So even though rates are much lower now, which is good, many programs default to abstinence-only messaging, but we know that doesn't always meet kids where they are. What are other strategies that you recommend for preventing teen pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections?
The first strategy is just let's all talk about it. I mean, what is the Salt and Pepper song? Let's talk about sex, baby. I mean, I just get tired of people not talking about it, you know? I mean, and one thing that I think is important to talk about, sure, abstinence, yes, please. But I also think it's important that teenagers know the stats. So the average age of having sex for the first time in the United States is 17 for a girl and 18 for a boy, which is probably a little higher than what you thought I was going to say. But I just think that that's an important stat, because if you think that everyone is doing it, you're wrong. So I think there's a lot of like peer pressure around it and things. So that's the first thing, is I just want people to know, like, sex is something you should do because you want to, and because you think it's the right decision for you, not because you're trying to keep up with people or things like that. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I think it's important for everybody to understand that there's two things you have to think about when you're thinking about having sex with someone. Number one, how do I not get pregnant? And number two, how do I not get a disease? And they're different things, but they both deserve time in your brain. So I think that that's kind of how I approach it with kids. I really try to be very open and comfortable talking about it. And I try to cover 3 topics with them. Number one, are you doing this for the right reasons? No one's forcing you. You're not doing it to prove something. You're doing it because you want to, because this is something that you want to do. And number 2, what are we going to do to make sure that there aren't any pregnancies that you don't want? And number 3, what are we going to do to make sure that you don't get an infection?
Good, thanks. So wrapping up our discussion, thank you all so much for being here. One last question. When you think about legacy, what impact do you hope your career has on the next generation of Lancaster's youth?
Well, I guess first of all, I just hope I have a little bit of a legacy. But first and foremost, I hope that people just thought that I was a good listener, and that when people needed my help, that I was there for them. And I guess my legacy is probably healthy kids and grandkids in the world, because that's what I spend a lot of time trying to make sure happens.
Wonderful. Well, you do have a legacy for sure, and we appreciate the impact on the community. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with a friend, reach out to someone who might need a little extra support today, and keep following along as we continue to share more podcasts and talk about community things going on and the next generation's challenges and hopes and dreams. Thank you.